The race for Senate will be one of the key races in the Texas primary. We want to help you learn more about the candidates. Joining us now is Democratic candidate Cristina Tzintzun Ramirez. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So you entered the Senate race fairly recently at the beginning of August. What do you want Texas voters to know about your campaign?
Well, you know, I have a decade and a half here in Texas of bringing people together to solve some of our state's biggest problems. I've led some of our most important and largest voting and civil rights organizations. I know that people want someone that's a fighter that understands what they go through. So I've worked, whether that's trying to raise wages for the people who build our homes and make their jobs safer, or tackle the crisis of student debt and climate change. I know how to make real change and solve people's real life problems. And, you know, while I think people want someone that understands what they go through, you know, while John Cornyn was accepting millions of dollars from the construction industry, I was making $43,000 a year representing people who built our homes, our schools, and our entire state's economy, who lost their limbs and lives doing that. I know that in Texas we work hard, but you sure wouldn't know it by looking inside our pocketbooks, and that's what I want to change. I want Texans to have someone that truly understands what they go through and is willing to fight for them.
You've said you were asked to run for U.S. Senate by the people who ran Beto O'Rourke's campaign. What was the reason that you made that run for Senate after that discussion?
Well, it took them about 2 months to convince me. I have a beautiful 2-year-old little boy at home, so at first I told them it wasn't the right personal time for me. And I went on a very long walk by myself after they kept bothering me. And look, it's not the right personal time for me, but it is the right moment in our state's history for a woman, for a Latina to run. Someone like me that's the daughter of a Mexican immigrant. My mom's the oldest of 9 kids. My dad's a white American. My white grandpa used to say we were purebred Irish Mexican Americans. And I knew there was nothing purebred about it, but I know what's best about our state is our diversity. And I know that no matter where you come from, the language you speak, the color of your skin, or who you love, that we all want the same things for our children, that we all just want them to be safe, to be healthy, and to go to great schools. So if this is the best way that we can build a political movement in our state to actually have people in office that represent us and will fight for us and bring our diverse state together, then I decided I was all in, and that this might not be the right personal moment, but it is the right moment in history for our state.
You've said you support mandatory gun buybacks. How do you implement that plan in a state like Texas, where gun control policies, can be quite divisive?
You know, here in our state, I was the best shot in my family growing up, so I support protecting the Second Amendment. But, we've had the 4 mass most deadly shootings have been here in Texas, the last 4. I graduated high school the year of the Columbine shooting. So I've been waiting my entire adult life to see Congress do very basic things like pass universal background checks, ban assault-style weapons, and instead we've been teaching a generation of young people to play dead in their classrooms. I want to pass the policies, not only that right now we believe that Republicans will agree to, that are backed by the NRA, like universal background checks or red flag laws, but I also want to pass the policies that will make sure that we don't see what happened in El Paso happen again. So if you support a ban, I believe you need to support a buyback. That is the best way to get weapons of war out of our communities, out of our streets, and to keep our children and families safe.
You're the founder of the organization Jolt, and this really is an organization that mobilizes young Latinos to vote. What was it like creating that, and why do you think an organization like that is necessary in the time we live right now?
So I launched Jolt the week after the November 2016 election when I was 6 months pregnant. Talk about a wrong personal time to start a political endeavor. But Jolt was focused on mobilizing young Latino voters. I believe that democracy from our nation's founding was a radical proposition. Even when we only extended the franchise to white land-owning men, the idea that ordinary people could come together and decide who would represent them, who had the best ideas to solve our state and country's problems, their problems, that was a radical proposition then, and it's a radical proposition now. So creating Jolt to make sure that young people had their voices heard makes me so proud, because here in Texas, I helped lead an initiative through the Texas Youth Power Alliance that registered 1 in 5 voters in Texas in 2018. We saw a 500% increase in the youth vote, a 250% increase in the Latino vote. So I know that real democracy, again, will be a threat to people in power, that we are going to get more young people, more people of color, out to vote more low-income people, and that's how we build a democracy, an economy, and a country for everyone.
Jolt has worked to help immigrant families in the past. DACA goes before the Supreme Court on Tuesday. What are you hoping will be the outcome of the hearing next week?
You know, I want to make sure that we're continuing to protect the rights of dreamers. Here in Texas, we have nearly 120,000 dreamers, young people that have lived in our schools and communities that we have extended protection to, that now work and live and go to our schools. I think we need to make sure to continue to protect the rights of dreamers and also work long-term to get comprehensive immigration reform for the millions of people in our country that have long worked and contributed here to, especially in Texas, our state's economy. And then we also have to really talk about what the debate around immigration is truly about. I really do not believe that John Cornyn and Donald Trump are just afraid of people like my 62-year-old immigrant Mexican mother, but that they are deeply afraid of people like me, her U.S. citizen daughter that can vote and has a dramatically different vision for my state and country than the one I see today. And to them, I would say they should be afraid, because it's going to be this proud immigrant daughter that unseats John Cornyn.
What are the other key issues in this race that you are passionate about?
Well, the two key issues that I think are really important here in Texas is obviously healthcare. We have 1 in 6 Texans that don't have healthcare, the highest uninsured rate in the country. You know, the reason why I support Medicare for all isn't just because it's one of the most popular policies in the country. I think it's particularly important for Texas because as long as we have had a healthcare industry that has profited, where private insurance companies have profited off of our pain, our suffering, and illness, it has resulted in the most expensive healthcare system in the world, with some of the worst outcomes of any industrialized nation. That is, by any measure, a failed system. I want the best system, the most affordable system that will give the best quality care in the richest nation in the world. I think every person should be able to go to the doctor when they are sick and have the highest quality health care when they need it.
Final question. What makes you the best candidate to beat Senator Cornyn?
You know, I know what people go through in this state. I think in this race, I may be underestimated, but you can ask any construction company or any politician that ever had to go up against me if they regretted underestimating me and the people that I represent. John Cornyn doesn't represent the Texas of today. He represents a Texas of the past. We need someone that's willing to fight for working families and middle-class families. I am that candidate, and I am also the candidate that has gotten people out to vote in Texas, young people, Latinos, Black, brown, and white folks coming together, LGBTQ and straight. I know how to build a coalition that can actually defeat John Cornyn.
Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thanks so much for having me.